What plot twist would you add to a movie's happy ending just to frick with the audience? The Emperor's New Groove. Cuzco built his resort and swimming pool, but not on the hills that Pasha said sing. He just displaced another peasant family and Pasha didn't care because screw those guys, they're just peasants. To be fair, they should have thought about that before becoming peasants. In School of Rock, the parents don't care that the band sounded good, they care more about how Jack Black said he touched their kids, and he ends up in jail. This is way more realistic. It's crazy how much Jack Black's character got away with just because the band sounded good. I read this months ago on here, but can't find the original post. The end of Passengers. Chris Pratt dies. The last 5 minutes of the movie is a montage of Lawrence's character mourning, getting past it, living life, getting bored and lonely, and the final scene is her getting drunk, crying, and opening another passenger's pod. In Breakfast Club, the arm pump at the end is really him setting off the detonator to the bomb he hid in the school. The Princess and the Frog takes place in 1926, and it ends with Tiana, finally, fulfilling her dream of being able to open up a luxury restaurant. I'd cut to 5 or 6 years later, when the restaurant has to close because the Great Depression has destroyed the US economy. Could be a setup for a great sequel actually, where she realizes that happiness can be found even if dreams are broken and need to be changed. Jumanji. At the end of the game nothing goes back to normal. Alan Parrish is still old, the kids' parents are still dead, the house is destroyed and that town is now full of invasive species. Invasive species is the worst part of this. At the end of Edge of Tomorrow, the day resets and we learn that the aliens have become smarter. In the book, that's what happens. Every time things reset they also have the knowledge of the previous day. Double quote. Truman walking off one TV set into a larger TV set. Surprise, there was a dome around the dome. We find out in X3 that Charles was a mutant supremacist controlling Magneto. I've always thought that the X-Men universe won the lottery by the fact that Charles is so compassionate, heroic, and idealistic. His powers, above nearly any other mutant, has the potential for truly evil consequences in the hands of an evil man. When E.T.'s spaceship takes off at the end, they nuke the planet. Only way to be sure. At the end of the first Matrix movie when Neo is in the phone booth, he calls someone. The person on the other end picks up and says, "You've made a wise decision, Mr. Anderson." Movie ends. Told you so, Mr. Anderson. On what she thinks is the 4th of February, Rita wakes up to Bill Murray back again in bed in Punxsutawney on the 3rd. It's her turn. That sounds great. This time, Rita needs to learn to be an butthole. Bilbo kills Frodo for destroying the ring. I could see Bilbo trying to strangle Frodo and Frodo just making those huge puppy dog eyes, going limp, and occasionally muttering no, Bilbo until Sam shows up and miraculously saves the day, earning Frodo's temporary spite. That seems to be Frodo's fighting style. The scene with Ferris Bueller laying in his bed, recapping why we have to stop and smell the roses ends. Cut to Cameron's garage. Cameron's father pulls up after work and finds the wreckage. Cameron comes and out stoically tells his father they have some things to discuss. They enter the house and the door closes behind them. A gunshot rings out. As the credits roll, we are forever left wondering who was killed. Thanos starts to disintegrate as well. I wouldn't call that a sadder ending honestly. Thanos' life's work is done. It could be filmed so he looks happy, knowing he succeeded even as he fades away. It would also make him even more sympathetic because he included himself in his plans and didn't put himself above the rest of the universe. Tom Hanks survives the whole ordeal from Castaway just to get into a fatal car accident at the very end. I personally was hoping that after he returns to the mainland he opens the package himself after the recipient is no longer available, only to discover a fully charged satellite phone for marine usage. Happy Death Day should have ended with her on her deathbed and she dies from old age and wakes up one day earlier, forever reliving her final day, too old and weak to do anything. She was cursed to go back to the last day she slept every time she died. There is zero indication that she is actually cured of this curse at the end of the film. I'm happy to see that movie in this thread. I really enjoyed it and I don't hear it talked about often. Bambi gets shot too. At the end of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Mr. Wonka unveils an even more top secret candy he's been making that made from children who couldn't survive his factory tour. It's called Soylent Green Light. Missed opportunity to call it Boilant Green. Wall-E should have stayed dead. He sacrificed himself for the greater good to let the humans know that life was possible on Earth. He doesn't get the girl. He doesn't get any recognition. It would have been tragic and beautiful. During the scene where Eve is scrambling to fix Wall-E by swapping in replacement parts, after Wall-E comes back online and fails to remember her, I wish there was a scene where Eve looks over to the pile of the broken parts that she removed from the original Wall-E, and just sort of sifts through them with her hands as she realizes that whatever Wall-E was is gone. Interstellar. At the end when Cooper is talking to his daughter, switch to a close-up of his face as he's talking. Slowly pan out to show he is still in his astronaut suit and talking to himself while drifting through space. The last 15 minutes of the movie were him hallucinating as he's running out of oxygen and dying. Almost the entirety of Gravity is just Sandra Bullock hallucinating after the first incident, which if you tell yourself that it corrects for all of the issues like how the movie ignores how gravity works or that every single satellite's orbit is not a couple hundred feet away from each other. Also that ending bit where somehow she gets back to Earth. Since Mad Dog Tannen was hanged for his crimes, Biff never existed, Marty's parents never met, and Marty is erased from existence. Great Scott. At the end of Solo, it reveals that Darth Maul's bottom half was ruling the Crimson Dawn. Let me butt you a question. Up ends 10 minutes in. Followed shortly by the sequel, Down. Toy Story. For Christmas Andy gets a certain orange-haired good guy doll as a gift. Titanic. After the wreck when Jack is in the water and Rose is on the door, Jack suddenly grabs the diamond off her neck and pushes her under the water to take the door for himself. Jack live sells the diamond and lives the rich life in New York City. Leads into The Great Gatsby. At the end of Jurassic Park 3, the characters rejoice at the sight of the military arriving to rescue them. Only, when they look closely, they see that the soldiers are all actually intelligent velociraptors wearing military gear, and they are coming to haul away the protagonists. It turns out Sam Neill's dream early on was a premonition, and the humans are actually the ones who were brought back to life by a planet populated by dinosaurs. Cut to credits. Planet of the Rats. Dorothy waking up from her dream and being surrounded by her family. They fetch the doctor and it turns out to be the actual Wicked Witch of the West. Green, evil, and still very much alive. Dorothy was on PCP and actually murdered an innocent woman then stole her shoes. Terminator 2. The Terminator grabs John and throws him in the molten steel. Sarah asks him why he did that after everything he did to help get where they are now, thinking he was acting more human while sobbing uncontrollably. Arnie says, "I lied." The end of The Dark Knight Rises. Bruce was actually a bat in a man costume in a bat costume. Man-Bat begins. Thelma and Louise survive the car crash to the bottom of the canyon and spend life in a supermax prison. No, as they are about to roll off the cliff, one of them bails. The Da Vinci Code. Final shot. Mary's zombified hand punches out of her tomb. She's back, and this time it's personal. Return of the Jedi. Han and Leia don't live happily ever after. Luke fails at reviving the Jedi and dies alone and broken, and the galaxy pretty much goes right back to war. Hey, wait a minute. Too soon. Will didn't leave at the end of Good Will Hunting. He got sent to jail for gambling debts. The beauty of this is they can shoot it once and use it as the ending for both GWH and Rounders. Any romantic comedy, they end up not getting together, living happily ever after. They just go on their ways and live pedestrian, joyless lives alone, except for Love Actually with Colin Firth, Jamie, and Lucia Moniz. Aurelia. They were adorable and deserve to be happy with each other. Any rom-com where one of them winds up getting a restraining order placed against them by their love interest due to their creepy, obsessive stalking and the whole reacting positively to their stalker's grand gestures was just a way for them to gather evidence to use against them in court. Obi-Wan was a homeless man who murdered the real Kenobi and was grooming Luke. To be fair, if a homeless man managed to kill a trained Jedi warrior, even sans lightsaber, I don't think Luke lost out too bad as far as training goes. The ending of Toy Story 3 is just a happy fantasy by Woody before he and his friends are incinerated by the trash compactor. Right after Clint Eastwood injects the fatal shot of adrenaline in $1 Million Baby, he trips over some cords lying on the floor and bashes his head against a stool on the floor. We cut to him lying in a hospital bed, grey face and completely paralyzed when Rocky enters, sheds a tear and injects Clint Eastwood with a fatal shot of adrenaline. That one, or that Clint Eastwood gets arrested for murder after the injection. That movie has such an amazing ending, like you think it's a run-of-the-mill sports movie and then everything just stops. Heartbreaking. Truman Show. Truman decides Christof is right and decides to stay on set. Then slowly starts murdering people, but despite all the cameras there's no evidence. At the end of Shawshank Redemption, Andy grins at Red and then calmly pulls a .38 from his waistband. He shoots Red between the eyes, spits on him, and looks at the camera. You dang right I killed my wife. Beheaded coming. Then, he goes back to sanding his boat. Roll credits. That's for giving me a bad deal on that rock hammer. The spinning top drops. For some time I believed it stopped spinning until I rewatched the movie. At the end of The Martian, there's a smash cut to the ship exploding into a ball of fire the minute it hits the Earth's atmosphere, rendering everything that happened in the movie pointless. Snow White's marriage starts going downhill and they end up getting divorced. At the end of Gravity, Sandra Bullock's character gets eaten by a shark. Have the girls actually drive off at the end of Zombieland? The boy from 12 Angry Men is actually guilty and he kills the witnesses the next day. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.